Lasting Legacy and Forever Care with the Scottish SPCA. My name is Ailsa Alcock and I'm the Senior Trusts, Legacy and Major Donor Officer for the Scottish SPCA. I have a little bit of information about this morning's event for you before I hand over to our CEO, Kirsteen Campbell. At the end of the event, a very quick survey will pop up on your screen. We'd really appreciate your feedback. Our speakers today are Scottish SPCA's CEO, Kirsteen Campbell, Adrian Howlett from Jones Whyte Solicitors, formerly McClure's, and Sharon Comrie, our Head of Partnerships, telling us about Forever Care. Behind the scenes, we also have David Webster, our Director of Finance and Corporate Services, to answer any financial questions at the end. You can submit any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen at any time, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where I will read them out for either Kirsteen, Adrian, Sharon or David to answer. Please feel free to say hello in the chat box and where you're watching from, and if you have a furry companion with you. This event is being recorded and will be available on our Legacy webpage with added subtitles next week. Just a reminder, you can ask questions in the Q&A box at any time. I'd now like to hand over to our lovely CEO, Kirsteen Campbell. Thank you, Kirsteen.
Thank you so much, Ailsa, for that lovely introduction. I have a furry friend with me, but she's sleeping, and let's hope she stays that way because she tends to bark a lot. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this virtual event. I'm so sorry it's virtual, but here's hoping we'll be together in person soon. I'm really delighted that we have some regular supporters and members with us today. I cannot thank you enough for everything that you do for us. As you'll hear today, we are entirely funded by generosity to the tune of almost £16 million a year. Gifts and wills and legacies are vitally important to that, on average making up around 46% of our income in any year. In fact, if you look at 2020, between gifts and wills and the kind support from our regular donors, that contributed to make up 70% of our income for the whole year. It is so important. It's lovely to have Adrian with us today. Thank you so much, Adrian. And Sharon, my colleague, who I have to say, because she has worked tirelessly for the Society for 48 years. She was very, very young when she started. She was genuinely very, very, very young when she started. There's nothing Sharon does not know. So she is such an asset, and she'll be talking a bit later about Forever Care. But before hearing from Adrian and Sharon, if I may, I would just like to talk a little bit about the Society and the importance of our work and focus on the work that we've been doing throughout the pandemic, because that really sets the scenes for why legacies are so important to the Scottish SPCA. As many of you will know, last year was actually our 180th anniversary, and we started the year thinking this will be fantastic, we'll have all these celebrations. So the year was memorable, but for very, very different reasons. We are embedded in every single community in Scotland. We support hundreds of domestic animals, wildlife and farm animals every single day. So we knew we had to keep going. While other people were forced to restrict services, we knew that given the work we do, we are unique in the UK because we have the powers to seize animals and investigate cruelty. We really, really had to keep going, and we had to work out how to safely do that because we truly believed that we would be needed more by animals and people in that year, 180th year, than we'd ever been needed before. I am so proud to say that we did manage to keep going. We did not miss a day. We were incredibly busy. We got so much support that I will thank people for throughout my short presentation, but we were there for animals and people every day. And I was really, really delighted and so proud that Emma Harper MSP brought forward a parliamentary motion that commended us in our outstanding performance throughout the pandemic. And that is just thanks to so many people. So a video will say it far better than I can. So I'll just show you a short video now. Thank you. So that gives you just a flavour, I think, of our year in 2020. But behind those numbers, there are real stories of our team, our supporters, our members, our volunteers going above and beyond every single day. Stories of animals who were perhaps neglected, abused, injured, had suffered cruelty, and also stories of people who were feeling a bit more lonely and isolated, people that we saw having more complex social issues, rising mental health challenges, financial difficulty, and for all of them, I am so proud that we were there. So if you'll allow me, I'd just like to talk through a few things to bring to life our year in 2020 and just talk about why our life-saving and life-changing work is so important. In looking at our team and our volunteers, we could do nothing without them. So the health, safety and well-being came absolutely first. That meant new protocols and new processes. Actually, sometimes they changed daily just to make sure that people were safe and their well-being was protected. We worked in a very agile manner. So if somebody found it challenging to carry out their role, for example, in education, when we couldn't get into schools, then they retrained and they were redeployed onto our front line where we really needed the help and the support in our animal care centres and our inspectorate. Such was our team's commitment. I was fortunate to go around and visit a number of our centres in the summer in particular, and people were actually living in their work bubble, even although restrictions had eased and at that point they could go out and see family and friends. They didn't do it because they wanted to protect their work colleagues and be able to look after the animals. The commitment is incredible. That commitment extends to our volunteer family. Over 20,000 hours you'll have seen in the video. To expand volunteering from 250 people to around 800 kind-hearted people, the things that these people do. We celebrated them yesterday at our AGM and it's unbelievable. So we were so fortunate to have all that support. We also tried to stay as connected as possible when we were physically distant, and it was really gratifying for me to meet our team in Caithness who said they'd never felt as connected with society. That was just so wonderful. So our team has been absolutely incredible and I take my hat off to them all, the team and the volunteers. And when we look at the animals and the people that we serve, there was actually a bit of a perfect storm, because when the pandemic first hit last year, we knew we wouldn't be able to rehome as we had done in the past because we couldn't welcome people to our centres. But we also knew we'd have even more animals in need than ever. So we developed a fostering programme, which feels like overnight. It was so quick. We had to develop that and innovate. We also developed virtual rehoming to make sure we could continue to rehome animals safely when allowed. Education lies at the heart of prevention, as many people know, so we couldn't stop. So we had to continue. You saw in the video, we quickly moved to online learning. Virtual classrooms. We recognised that a lot of young people may experience digital poverty, so we worked with Barnardo's and Police Scotland to get packs out to 1,000 of those young people. We recognised that people were facing real challenges, so domestic violence sadly rose, as we all know, during the pandemic, and often the first act of violence is against an animal. So we helped people in those situations and we reintroduced our First Strike campaign. We also worked with young people who were feeling perhaps a bit more disconnected with life and the world and learning, and introduced a Magic of Nature programme to help with perhaps antisocial behaviour. A lot of people also, maybe people on the call today, were really worried about the impact of COVID on their animals. If you remember right back at the beginning, we just didn't know. So we worked with our partners to join up messages to really make people feel more confident and secure about that. We also did lots of other campaigning around being wildlife wise and specifically tackling the puppy trade. Now, I will talk a little bit about this because that exploded in lockdown, and I'm sure everyone on this call knows of someone who got a dog throughout the last 15 months. Sadly, where there is demand, there is supply, and there's supply from people who care nothing for animal welfare. So we redoubled our efforts to disrupt that supply and also to be able to cope with the number of puppies that we were then seizing and had to care for. You saw in the video, we referenced the absolute highlight, I must say, of our year. was when all the campaigning we had done led to the Animals and Wildlife Scotland Act 2020 coming into force. And that was unanimous across the whole Scottish Parliament. So now in Scotland, harsher sentences are a reality, and we will be able soon to rehome animals caught up in court cases far more quickly. Now, that campaign work is critical, and we must keep going with that. As our centres reach capacity, we must be able to rehome animals without having to wait for the conclusion of a court case. And we really can't thank our partners enough who helped us as our centres did hit capacity, given our unique role. So how do we finance all of this? Well, that really is down to our wonderful supporters and friends. Given our priorities, we really couldn't take advantage of the job retention scheme. Everybody had roles to do to try and support our frontline services, and different roles to do and adapt. So we saved as much money as we could. We shouted about our work, and we generated income in different ways. And thank you so much. I don't know if anyone on the call participated in any of our online fundraising events, but our supporters stood by us, our members, and I know we have members on the call today, they stood by us, and we cannot thank you enough for that. We are so reliant on membership income and gifts and wills, and we knew understandably that people may not be able to support us given their circumstances. So thank you so much. I mentioned earlier that legacies play a significant role in funding our work, and it doesn't matter the size of the gift. Every legacy is so important to us, and we are grateful for every single penny. Leaving a gift in your will is such an act of kindness, and it ensures, in our case, the love and support for animals continues beyond your own lifetime. One thought to take away from today is that time is ever right for you to remember a charity in your will. Please do remember the Scottish SPCA and allow your love for animals to live on. I've just got a few examples of some legacies, and there are a couple of slides here that I think we could put up now, if that's okay. So as I said, legacies come in absolutely all sizes. We were really, really indebted to Vicky and Kate Fulton, who a few years ago left us as you can see here, lasting legacy. They provided support over so many years to our centre in Cardonald, our largest centre, and we were able to rebuild, as you can see, Cardonald. It's on 2 stories. So rather than being able to care for 99 dogs, we could actually care for 150 dogs. And I can tell you that over the last year, we have been at capacity permanently in Cardonald. So had they not done that, I actually don't know what we would have done. You know, obviously we do lots of fostering and working with our partners and do everything we can, but the fact that they did that has helped us significantly. Just think of the thousands of animals they've helped. Similarly with cattery accommodation. So their kindness is overwhelming and lives on. Another example, again, of a large legacy, in 2005, a lovely gentleman, Mr. Bremner, bequeathed 75.5 acres of farmland at Remoke in Aberdeenshire. It is absolutely beautiful and so quiet and peaceful and just lovely up there. We're able to care for horses, donkeys, give them sanctuary while we rehabilitate them. That would not have been possible without his kindness. Again, just think of the thousands and thousands of animals of all species that we're able to care for in that lovely environment. But they're very, very large examples, legacies of any size we are incredibly grateful for. And you can see here, there are just a few examples of different types of values, what we're able to do with different amounts of money. So, for example, £2,000 allow us to buy covers for seal pools in our National Wildlife Rescue Centre. We look after so many seals every year. The care and the expertise of our Wildlife Centre is second to none, world leading, and that would greatly help with our seal care. Or another example would be sensory gardens. £10,000 allows us to build a sensory garden. We built one in Dumbarton last year. We have 3 in the society. Given the animals that we care for, sometimes on a very long-term basis due to court cases, the sensory garden is just so wonderful to see them in, because they may struggle in kennels, and for them to be in that amazing space. So it's transformational. That £10,000 helps thousands of dogs every single year. And it actually really, really helps our team, who so love being able to take the dogs out and see how they're getting on. So I hope I've given you just an indication of our work and the importance of legacies to us and that support. 2021 has continued to be a really massive team effort, but I know that if we continue to work together, we can come out of the pandemic stronger than we entered it, and we really need to. There are so many challenges in animal welfare. We are seeing rising demand for our services. I've talked about the puppy trade, but there are also people who took on a pet and then perhaps have problems financing the veterinary fees. Perhaps the animal wasn't well originally when it had been caught up in the puppy trade. Heightened demand for low-cost veterinary care. An awful lot of people are phoning us about that now, and perhaps having had limited access to, or more limited access to veterinary care in lockdown leads to issues in the future. We also know that our income will be under pressure. Understandably, people have so many priorities, but I can promise you that we are going to continue to keep going. We will continue to innovate, to partner, to do lots of amazing things and look after any animal and person who needs us in every single corner of Scotland. And we're only able to do that due to very kind-hearted, wonderful people who support us. So thank you all for listening. I hope that's given you just a bit of a flavour of our work and the importance of gifts and wills, and I'd be very happy to take any questions later.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kirsteen. And I'll be happy to, as Kirsteen just said, pass any questions to her at the end. I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker from Jones Whyte Solicitors, Adrian Howlett. Adrian's very kindly taken time out of his holiday to speak to us today about making a will and how easy it is. So I'll hand over to you, Adrian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ailsa. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm actually sitting next to the River Thames down in London. So hopefully there'll be no test fire alarms in the background while I'm talking to you. So ignore them and don't run if it goes off. I'm going to just introduce myself again. Adrian Howlett. I'm an estate planning consultant for Jones Whyte Solicitors. And I'm going to talk to you today about wills and gifts in wills. Effectively, we specialise in advising clients on estate planning. And that's getting you ready for, unfortunately, when you come to that final day and you die. So will is something that basically looks after your estate and dictates where your assets are going to go afterwards. We also do other things as well. Power of attorney is very important before you die, and trusts. Hopefully I'll get on to talk a wee bit about trusts in my talk. So wills. Kirsteen very kindly mentioned that you rely very heavily on gifts and wills, the charity. In order to have a gift and will, obviously you need to have a will in place, and that's where we come into play. I'm talking to you today about from Jones Whyte Solicitors, but needless to say, you can instruct any solicitor to write a will, and there's also will writers that do the same. So you may have your own family solicitor. So today is a general talk about what to do and how to do it, but you're more than welcome to use your own solicitor. You do not have to come to us, although we'd love you to come to us. Why is it important to have a will? Effectively, it dictates what happens after you die. You're basically deciding in a will, without going through all the detail, who the executor is going to be. That's the person that executes your will. And also you're going to dictate who the beneficiaries are going to be. They're the people that are going to benefit from your estate. And your estate will be made up of various assets. So it will be possibly your property or properties if you have more than one. It will be what's in your bank accounts, what's in your savings, etc. And other assets that you own. So they make up your estate, and that will then get distributed amongst your beneficiaries. Will can also determine other things. For instance, you could have other clauses like a right to occupy if there's other people that use your property and you want them to stay in the property after you die. We can also put the forever care details, which I think Sharon's going to talk about later. So that can go in your will as well. So anything, all your wishes basically that you want to dictate and leave, so your executor can make sure that your wishes are looked after you die. If you don't have a will, which I don't recommend, by the way, but if you didn't have a will, effectively your estate might not go where you want it to go. It will take longer, it will cost more, and it will give someone a bit of hassle after you die as well, because they'll need to sort things out. The laws of intestacy take over in this situation. So the law dictates where your money goes. There's very strict rules on that. Unfortunately, bequeaths or gifts and wills to charity are not part of laws intestacy, so you would miss out on leaving money to your favourite charities. There's a normal scenario though, in that most people don't believe they're going to die tomorrow, so they think, oh, don't worry, I'll leave my will today, I'll do it tomorrow, and then I'll get it sorted. Unfortunately, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, so it's best to get yourself planned with a will. I'm very commonly at shows, and I talk to people and advise them. And I do get a lot of people that say, oh, don't worry, Adrian, it's all right, I'm not going to die anytime soon, I'll get it sorted at some time in the future. I say, yeah, you're normal. 70% of the adult population don't have a will, so you're in the normal category. But do me a favour, here's a pad and here's a pen. You just write on there your name and number and your date of death, and I'll call you a month beforehand. It puts the whole thing into context, doesn't it? That we just don't know when that day's going to come. So it's best to plan for it and get it sorted. We've been preparing wills for a long time. Prior to me working with Jones Whyte, I worked with McClure Solicitors. They've been operating since 1853, and they very much specialised in estate planning. 70%, as I mentioned before, do not have a will, so please don't be in that category. Be in the 30% that does have a will, and be organised. We see it that there are 3 steps in making a will. The first is where will your estate go when you die? We're no different than any other solicitor in that respect. We would dictate your wishes as you tell us. But we also think about what effect that will have on your beneficiaries after you die, and also where does the money actually end up. So let me just put that into a story for you to put it in context. We had a lady, a client of ours, come to see us. And she wanted to get her dad's estate sorted because he unfortunately had just died prior to that. Yeah, no problem, we can do that for you. He hadn't been a client of ours, but that didn't matter. So we said, right, come in, bring in the papers, bring in the will, and we'll get it all sorted for you. So we did that, we met with her, and we established that she was the only beneficiary. She was also the executor, so that made it all nice and easy. And we worked out what her estate was worth and what his estate was worth. And it turns out that because she was single and had no children, her lifetime allowance was £325,000. But unfortunately, or fortunately for her, her estate was worth more than that. So effectively, everything that was coming from dad to the daughter potentially could have had a tax problem when she died. So in fact, we gave the advice, we sorted out a will trust for her, and it meant that his money went into a will trust for her benefit, and it meant that it didn't impact on her. What we didn't plan for is that she died a couple of years later, and we then sorted out her estate. But the purpose of doing that was effectively protecting his money when he died, so it didn't impact when she passed away. And by doing that, setting up the trust for her to protect the family assets, we were able to save the family £55,000 in inheritance tax. So by planning in advance, you may not be aware of what the implications are, but we certainly will be able to look at that for you and give you the right advice to make sure that the will is correct. A will, remember, is a wish of where you want your assets to go. It doesn't always happen that way, and I'll give you another example about that in a few minutes. The reason you might want to use Jones Whyte rather than other solicitors, because we have a partnership with the Scottish SPCA. We have a free online will scheme. So we would give you access to an online will system, and you can dictate your wills over that. Alternatively, if you actually wanted to meet someone, we can do that as well. And then there's a small charge for a will, whether it be a single or a mirror will, and we donate money back to the charity out of the fee that you pay for that. We generate many appointments through charity partners. We have over 200 charity partners. Scottish SPCA is one of our most important ones, obviously, because it is very local to us. And last year, from people that came to us to write their wills through the charity partnership scheme, we raised over £240,000 in donations from people leaving a donation from the will, and we also raised £38 million in gifts and wills. and quite a sizable amount of that was for the charity today. So it is very important, gifts and wills, and that leads me into talk about gifts and wills. I think that's a main reason that we're here today, is to talk about raising money for the Scottish SPCA. So a gift and will, what is it? Effectively, it is an amount of money that you pledge in your will, and effectively it comes out of your estate after you die. There are various ways that you can leave a gift and will. One is a pecuniary legacy. So a pecuniary legacy is a cash amount that you leave in your will. So it could be, for example, £100, it could be £1,000, it could be £10,000. The second type of legacy would be a residuary legacy, and this is a part or percentage of your estate. So effectively, when you die, we arrange all the estate, bring it all in together, and we pay out pecuniary legacies, any debts, etc. And then that leaves the residue of your estate, and then we pay that percentage out to the charity. So if you left, let's say, 99% to your family and 1% to the charity, we would then work out what that 1% is and pay that as a residuary legacy. If you didn't have any children or family, we do find also our clients then divide that residue up amongst their favourite charities. So you could leave 10, 20, 30% to the charity. A specific legacy is another type of legacy whereby you leave something very specific. So it could be a bank account, for example. It could be a car. We've had people leave cars in the past to charities. I don't mean a little Fiat Punto. I mean like you have a nice Ferrari sitting in your garage or something like that. That obviously then would be sold and left to charity. We've also had people leave properties. So they might have more than one property, and they leave a specific property to a charity. So that's a specific legacy but we would talk that through with you. You don't need to worry about that. We'll keep you right in that respect. Okay. Remember, it can be as little or as much as you want, a gift and will. We'll talk it through with you, and you can feel comfortable about that. The good news is you can change your mind at any time. So by leaving your asset, your money in your will today, if you change your mind, that's not a problem. You just come back and see us, and we can get that updated for you. It's not uncommon for people to add to their wills in the future. Very rarely do they take them out, but they do add to them. And the other, I think, is an important point about a gift and will is you never actually pay that amount of money. So it's not going to impact on your lifestyle and what happens during your lifetime. The money comes out of your estate after you die. So please consider one last legacy to a very good cause, the Scottish SPCA, when you do write your will. I note Kirsteen gave a few examples earlier about how money does help with the charity. There were two others that were on the slide there that she didn't mention, so I'll quickly mention them. £1,000, which in the scheme of things is not a huge amount of money, but it would make a huge difference to the charity, would pay for a microchip reader for animals in the wild, and this helps them monitor wildlife like foxes and badgers, etc. Alternatively, £5,000 would pay for a dry suit for one of their frontline staff. I must come and visit the charity. I wouldn't mind getting a dry suit and getting out there and involved. And that means they can carry out water rescues with swans, seals and beavers. I live down in Guruk, so I've seen that actually happen with swans. We have a number of swans down that part of the world. So it's a great opportunity to think about leaving the majority of your money to family. That's normal. But also leaving a small amount, even if it's £5,000, to the Scottish SPCA to help their work in the future. Obviously, Kirsteen gave examples also of the Ricky Fulton and the Owen Bremner. That's for big amounts, and it's not unusual for that to happen with our clients as well. As I mentioned earlier, we do have clients that don't have family. I had a lady that I met down in Brighton who didn't have any family, and she was very emotional about the whole thing, didn't quite know what to do. So we just talked through it. We talked about what she liked and who she supported, and then we wrote in her will that it was being left to 3 of her favourite charities. She then rang me 3 times after that to add another 3 charities into her will, and all these charities were getting very sizable amounts, but the great thing is it's what the client wanted. It's what she wanted. She wanted those charities to receive that money so they could continue their great work in the future. So please consider that as part of your estate planning. Next part I'd like to just cover, we've talked about making a will, but there may be some very organised people in the room today that have made their will already, so well done you. You'll be in the 30% of people in the UK that have got their will sorted. So you'll join me maybe and a few others in the room. I won't embarrass Kirsteen and Sharon to ask if they've done it yet. But a will review is something that we also do. We carry out will reviews, so that's you having a chat with one of us to establish your circumstances, and you may carry out a will review for many reasons. The most common one is because people change circumstances. They may have written their will many years ago when their children were very young, and now the children are grown up, and instead of the sister or brother being the executor, they now want the kids to be an executor. So that could be a good reason to update your will. You may have fallen out, I'll whisper that one, you may have fallen out with some of your family. It does happen, unfortunately. So you might want to include or exclude people in your will for that purpose. So it's something that you may determine, or actually more importantly, you may come to talk to us and then we review your circumstances. That is as important. So by us reviewing your circumstances, we may find that it's better to have a will, but also protect that with the trust to make sure that your assets go to the family that you want them to go to, and also the charities you want them to go to. I call it, is your will enough? Do you go the 3 steps? So if I gave you a very quick example of that, and I'm going to use myself here as the example. I have a will. You'd be surprised if I didn't, wouldn't you? So I have a will, my wife has a will, and there's no secret in what our will says. I'm leaving everything to my wife. She leaves everything to me when she dies, and we have 3 children, so we're leaving all our assets to the 3 children. But what would happen in this situation? Let's say I died, my money would all go to my wife. I'm very happy with that. She then decides she's lonely and she wants to pal up with someone else. So let's say she does get married to someone else. What she might not realize is the will she's made is no longer valid. So she should have made a new will but doesn't. And then she dies next. Effectively, because she's married, all the assets then by laws of intestacy would be split amongst her family, or more to the point, his family, because she's now died. And it's a very high chance in that scenario that my children, her children, from our relationship, then disinherit, because effectively they're not blood related to the new husband. So we need to make sure that we don't know that's going to happen in the future, unfortunately, when we write a will in most cases, but we can plan for these things and make sure that you have the right will in place, but also, if need be, we put a trust in place to protect that for you as well. So remember the step 1, 2, 3, it's the will first is step 1, dictating who your executor and beneficiaries are. Step 2 is what impact will that have on your beneficiaries in the future. I gave the example earlier about inheritance tax. By us getting involved, we were able to avoid the family paying a big inheritance tax bill in the future. So again, that's all part of the estate planning process, and that meant that we saved the family £55,000 in cash. If you looked at my example, it basically meant that we would have protected our money, Liz and my money, being protected for our children in the future. And everyone in the room will have their own circumstances, their own makeup, family, and we look at that scenario and we look at your individual circumstances, and we'll give the right advice based on what you need. And every other solicitor should do that as well, but we don't always find that happens, because you normally tend to go in for a will instruction and that's what you get. We think about it a bit further than just a will instruction. So as I mentioned trust, I'm just going to quickly mention 2 that we work with quite a lot. As I said, a will is a wish of where you want your assets to go. It doesn't protect your assets necessarily. In most cases, it does go where you want it to go, but it doesn't always work like that. So we have a family protection trust, also known as a lifetime discretionary trust. And we also have a testamentary trust plan, also known as a will trust. And that's what we did for the client that I mentioned earlier. So we looked at the circumstances and then we protected the assets after his death in his trust. for the benefit of the daughter. So the daughter still can get access to that money just like you would with a will. The difference being, if you just have a will, the money passes to the beneficiaries, nothing then can be protected after that. That then becomes your money if you're the beneficiary. With a trust, it's protected, and then you can work with the trustees to make sure it's protected in the future. So that gives you a good example of how trusts work, how wills work. The other thing I will mention today very quickly, and I'm not here to talk about it, but I think it is important because it is relevant for the subject, is powers of attorney. We all need to make sure that, especially if we're over, let's say, the age of 50, we should make sure that we have our power of attorney in place. A power of attorney effectively is protecting your wishes while you're alive, not when you're dead. So it's basically you giving power to an attorney to act for you and do things for you. They can't amend your will, so you're absolutely fine there. You can get your will sorted first. But if you need banking done, or houses need sold, or whatever, or health decisions need made, the power of attorney can do that for you. So that's really important to make sure you have that done in advance as well. Otherwise, you have to go down a different route, which is more expensive, more onerous, and not recommended. And the great advantage of doing a power of attorney with us is because we're partnered with the Scottish SPCA, we donate an amount out of our fee back to the charity so they can continue doing their good work. So hopefully that gives you, I know it's a very quick fire presentation, but hopefully it gives you an example of what you need to do with your will, also what you need to do with a power of attorney if you're needing that as well. I highly recommend it. And please don't leave it till tomorrow. That is the common practice. I'll leave that, I'll do that tomorrow. You get to tomorrow and then it's something else more important takes over in your life. So if you don't have a will, please sort it out either with us or with your own family solicitor. And if you do have a will and you've heard what I said today and you think, that's interesting, my solicitor never spoke to me about that, please come and have a chat with us and we'll sort that out. So there is a free phone number which I will supply to the Scottish SPCA for making appointments. And that's me done. So I think I'm back to you, Ailsa.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Adrian. I'm sure we can arrange a day out with one of our animal rescue officers and even pop you in a dry suit if that's what you really like. There's a couple of questions for you that I'll read out at the end, but for now, I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Sharon Comrie. Sharon is our Head of Partnerships and she'll talk us through our Forever Care service. So over to you, Sharon. Thank you.
Thanks, Ailsa. Hi everyone, I'm Sharon and I'm going to talk to you about the Scottish SPCA and how we can help you find peace of mind if you're a pet parent. No matter what age we are, life has a habit of throwing us curveballs, and I'm sure you've all worried about what would happen to your beloved pet if something was to happen to you. If you find you're unable to care for your pet through illness, a change in circumstance, or sadly, if you pass away, it's a subject none of us like talking about, but it is a reality of life and it's a very important part of being a pet parent, especially if we live alone or if you don't have any family or friends who are in a position to take your pet companion on if something were to happen to you. So Forever Care is a free service and we're very proud to be able to give this service to our supporters and members. It gives the pet owner peace of mind that your much loved companion will be well looked after should the unthinkable happen. If you join our free Forever Care service, you'll be safe in the knowledge that your pets will be in safe hands if you pass away or if it isn't possible for you to continue to look after them. Our dedicated staff will do everything in their power to make your beloved companion feel safe and secure, and that's a big peace of mind to anyone who owns a pet. We will ensure your pet is happy and healthy by providing everything they need, including any veterinary treatment, before finding them a loving new home. I have two stories I'd like to share with you, and it's to show you that there's no hard and fast rule about how you can make Forever Care work for you and your circumstances. We'll have a wee slide that Laura's going to put up just now. And the first story is about Amber. Amber's the wee ginger cross Jack Russell there. And she lived for many happy years with her elderly owner. Sadly, her owner became ill and passed away. Thankfully, Amber's owner was a Forever Care member and had left clear instructions to contact the Scottish SPCA if anything should happen to her. Arrangements were made for Amber to be taken to one of our animal rescue and rehoming centres. Amber was a bit confused and upset to be taken out of her familiar surroundings, and she was struggling to settle within the kennel environment. She wouldn't eat and was clearly grieving for her owner. The staff were quickly recognised that Amber would benefit greatly to be in a home environment instead of a kennel situation. So Laurie, as you can see in the picture there with Amber, worked at the centre, and she kindly offered to foster Amber at home to save Amber any more stress. Laurie took her home, and within a couple of days, Amber's appetite returned, and she soon started to show her sassy side, as only a Jack Russell owner will know. They do have a sassy side. Laurie's pet name for Amber became My Wee Croquette. Amber stayed a good few months with Laurie, which was an invaluable experience for the old dog, and definitely proved the point that old dogs can certainly learn new tricks. Amber had a few lumps and bumps removed, as well as a dental from the local vet, and the centre staff soon found Amber a loving new home. Thanks to Forever Care, Amber was ready to do what our pet companions do best: love unconditionally and bring joy and happiness into someone else's life. So that's Amber's story. We move over to the next picture, and it's Shona. Now, this was two elderly Yorkshire Terriers, Sheila and Shona, but unfortunately I don't have a picture of Sheila, but that's Shona. So an elderly lady died and left a legacy in her will to the Scottish SPCA, with full instructions contained in her will that her elderly friend would look after her two 13-year-old Yorkshire Terriers, Sheila and Shona, with the understanding if her friend became unable to look after the two dogs, the society would take them into their care under the Forever Care service. The instruction was that the society would pay out the lady's estate all vet bills and feeding for the two dogs for their lifetime. Her friend would send in receipts for vet care and food, and we would cover these costs and provide support when needed, as agreed. Sadly, after about 6 months, Sheila died, but Shona lived happily for many more years and lived to a grand old age of just short of 19 years. By working together, the lady's friend and the society made sure her wishes were fulfilled and her dearly loved pet companions were loved and cherished until the end of their lives. Our free Forever Care service really does provide peace of mind to every pet parent. A couple of questions commonly asked, and I've just got 3 here that I would like to just run through with you. The first one is, how will you know what when my pet needs to come to the Scottish SPCA? So your next of kin, executor of your will, vet or other relevant person will need to contact the Scottish SPCA on 03000 999 999 to let us know what your pet needs to be rehomed. To ensure this happens, we strongly advise that, as well as including Forever Care instructions in your will, you tell relevant people your wish for your pets to be taken to the Scottish SPCA. Family, friends, vets, neighbour, colleagues, social worker, anyone who has access to this information. You should also make sure that your Forever Care documents, will, and any other relative paperwork is kept up to date and is easy to find. The second question most people would like to know is, what if I have more than one pet? All pets must be identified on the completed Forever Care form. If they are all in order, the Scottish SPCA has made a commitment to you to find them a loving new home. And can my pets be rehomed together? At the Scottish SPCA, we'll always put the well-being of our animals first, and where we can see that a pair or a group of animals are clearly bonded and it's in their best interest to be kept together, we will certainly look to rehome them together. We would make sure that the new family are aware of this and are financially able to cover any costs. So how do you apply for Forever Care? If you'd like more information on our Forever Care service, please go to our website on www.scottishspca.org to request your free information pack, or call 03000 999 999 option 4. Remember to let your next of kin know you've joined Forever Care so they're aware of your wishes for your pet. And you can also find out more about leaving a legacy where your love for animals will live on and on. I hope I've given you a better understanding of Forever Care and peace of mind that your beloved pets will be taken care of should anything happen to you. Thank you for your time, and remember, this is a free service and it's to support you and your beloved pet companions. And I'm really proud that the Scottish SPCA can offer that service to you, because I'm a pet owner and I know how important it is to make sure that we have provisions for them. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll pass you back to Ailsa.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Sharon. We've had a few questions sent through from our audience, so I'll start reading them out now. First one for you, Sharon. What if my cat has a special diet for her kidneys? Can you still find a home for her?
We most definitely can. All our animals that come in through Forever Care or any type of reason they come into the centres are all veterinary checked. So your animal will be veterinary checked, and we will make sure that we get the right owner that will still provide the proper feeding and medical help for your pet. And also it's good that if you keep a wee diary update with your Forever Care details of any new feeding regimes or medication your pet is on. So if you keep that up to date, that would be great, but we would definitely find a home for your pet.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Melanie McSherry put a question in the question and answers box. If you leave money to charity in your will, does this reduce the amount of inheritance tax? David, our financial director, has answered that, and I've asked Adrian if he wanted to add anything, and he said that he endorses his answers. So hopefully you've read that answer there, Melanie, and you're happy with that. And I've got another. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, can I just add something else into that, if you don't mind?
Please do, yes.
Yeah. Basically, any money that's left to charity is taken out of the calculation, effectively, when they're working out any tax that's payable. Only if you're due to pay inheritance tax, that is. If you're not due to pay inheritance tax, it's not relevant. But the money's taken out. It reduces effectively the tax rate from 40% to 36% for inheritance tax purposes if you have over the £325,000 allowance. But you have to leave a sizable, a 10% amount net rate in order to get that discount. The other point, which I think is more relevant because it's not necessarily out in the public domain, it's quite legal to avoid inheritance tax. If you plan in advance, you can actually avoid inheritance tax completely, and therefore there's no tax to pay. And that means actually the charity would end up getting more money in that situation.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Super. One more quick question for you, Adrian. Do you cover the whole of Scotland? We're in Ayrshire.
Absolutely, yes, all over Scotland. Our office is based in Glasgow and our historic home of Greenock, but we go all over. At the moment, we're doing most of our appointments via video because that has been the case throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to do that. The government did relax the law in terms of signing wills, the attestation process, so we're able to do that at the moment up until January 2022. If we can see people, we will obviously, and if they want to come to the office, we do have all the contingencies in place to see people during the pandemic. And there may be people living over the border possibly, or they may have family that lives south of the border, as I do. We operate both in England and Wales and Scotland. We're one of the very few solicitors that can act for clients on both sides of the border. So yes, is the answer. Long answer to that.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And I think it's important to also say you do telephone appointments, I think, as well, Adrian, because we know not everybody does the internet. Obviously, everybody that's joining us today.
Telephone. And when we can, one thing we've always done historically is a home visit. We have stopped home visits just as a temporary measure because obviously we're trying to protect both parties. But they will come back into play as well once everyone's had their jags and whatever, because we do know there will be some of your supporters that are homebound or just can't get to an office. So we could maybe have the initial consultation on the phone or video, and then we could actually go and see them at their house as well.
That's brilliant, thank you. At the moment, one final question. Sharon, this is for you. What happens if my pet passes away? Do I need to tell you?
Most definitely, it'd be beneficial if you do keep us updated if your pet passes away, but equally as important, if you do get a new pet, you do need to let us know as well, so we can add it to the forever care list.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everybody. There doesn't seem to be any more questions at the moment, but thanks for taking the time to listen to all our speakers, and hopefully now you've got a greater understanding about the incredible difference that legacies make to the work of the Scottish SPCA, and just how easy it is to make a will, thanks to Adrian. Thank you to all our speakers, Kirsteen, Adrian and Sharon, and we'd really appreciate if you could take 2 minutes just to answer the short survey that's just about to pop up on your screen. Everything you need to know about legacy and forever care services are on our website, and if you want any further contact details to speak to us, they're on there as well. And next week we'll be sharing this video to you in an email to say thanks very much. Just left to say thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ailsa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.